You're listening to Simple Roots Radio, episode number 114. And today we're diving into healing trauma to heal your body. Yes, this is a deep one, but it's so good.
Welcome to Simple Roots Radio with Alexa Shern. Alexa believes that simplicity in life is the key to achieving true and lasting health. And now your host, Alexa Shern.
Welcome back to the show. As always, this is the place to get healthy, live happy, and find more joy. Today, we're talking about living with more joy and more happiness by healing your mind and your emotions. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about healing your trauma to heal your body and what this looks like. And the better news is that I have an expert on to help us do just that. I'm going to be interviewing Amy Van Slambrook today, and Amy is a licensed psychotherapist, certified life and workplace coach, experienced consultant specializing in the emotional health of women, relationships, and recovering from trauma. Today on the show, I'm going to be asking Amy about the effects of past trauma on our health, how our emotions biologically impact our body, and how to begin healing our mind to heal our body. It is going to be so good, and this is, as you know, one of the most passionate subjects that I talk about. So you're going to want to stay tuned to listen to her fantastic interview. But before we get to the show, I just want to remind you that before we get to the show, I wanted to thank our sponsor, Teami. Teami is an all-natural tea company on a mission to not just tell people about change, but to help make change happen. I love this company and what they can do. You may also know how much I love tea, which makes Teami an easy addition to my everyday life. I'm always on the hunt for good tea, good high-quality teas, and Teami has come through every single time. One of my favorite products is their cleanse package, which works so well considering that I'm going through the Simple Cleanse right now. But their cleanse package comes with two different tea blends, Teami Skinny and Teami Colon. Teami Skinny is a tea that can replace your coffee, providing extra energy, suppress your cravings, and get rid of bloat first thing in the morning. Then, at night, you take Teami Colon, which helps provide necessary support to your body's detox pathways and allowing you to rest deeper. The tea blends are made up of many different varieties of teas, making this complete system so easy and effective, you can't not do it. If you want to get your own Teami blends, make sure you head on over to teamiblends.com, that's Teami blends.com, to grab your own detox package. And if detoxing isn't your thing, don't worry. Teami has a variety of other teas designed for relaxation, energizing, and even for those nursing mamas. The better news is Teami is giving you a discount on your very first order. Use the code SIMPLEROOTS, that's all capitals, SIMPLEROOTS, to get 15% off your order of $49.99 or more. Yes, 15% off using code SIMPLEROOTS at checkout. So make sure you go over to teamiblends.com and grab your own teas. Okay, now let's get right to the show, diving right into past traumas, emotional hurts, and how to heal from all of this. Welcome to the show, Amy. I'm excited to have you on and talk about a subject that is becoming such a passion in my life. So thanks for being on and willing to share.
Well, I am so beyond thrilled to be able to talk with you and just to share what I've learned and found in my own life and in my own experience. So thank you. It's a real gift to be here.
Yeah. So the mind, and this summer I did an entire mindset series on the podcast. And it's just, like I said, such a fascinating subject because I'm learning that we can only do so much with nutrition and exercise. And I think they're really, really important pieces of the puzzle. But at the end of the day, often our mind controls, or our mind does control our actions and even our hormonal response and chemical messengers that are happening inside our body. So without the right mindset, we can really be fighting against our body with all these changes that we're trying to make. So I want to dig into this and the mind. And I want to start by trying to outsmart your mind. And I say that lightly because I want to get your opinion. But I'm finding that, like I said, even when someone wants something so bad, right? Like they want to get healthy, they want to lose weight, or whatever it is that they're trying to do, and they want it so bad, that doesn't mean that they're actually going to do it. So how do we get our mind to follow through with the change that we desperately desire?
Well, that is the $1 million question, right? I think it's finding that key, and it is such a burning question and such a source of frustration for people because in many cases, it's not an effort issue. You know, if I try harder, I ought to be able to do it. And then, of course, we beat ourselves up if we can't. But I've really found, and this is taking a lot from the work of Dr. Daniel Amen and Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who's a specialist in trauma and the mind and the body, is really taking a 4-pronged approach. You know, you have to address the biological, the psychological, the social, and the spiritual. And without all of those being addressed, you're not going to be set up for success. And if you don't have a brain that's functioning for whatever reason, trauma, disease, addiction, whatever it is that's holding you back, or proper nutrition, you can't really help to change your spirit or your mindset. But likewise, without those two in a healthy place, you can't change your body, and neuroplasticity doesn't have a chance to be optimized. And then, of course, our community is completely invaluable in cementing all of it and helping us along the journey, because we're not meant to do this by ourselves. But man, this is a source of shame, and it literally changes the brain when we absorb the shame and take it in, and we can see changes in the brain and in the body in response to those emotional and spiritual states.
So when you say that we can suppress the shame, does that become a trauma then in our life? Is that technically a trauma? Or does a trauma considered something that's like a large incident that happened?
Well, we use big T and little t when it comes to trauma, you know, because trauma really is an interruption and a violation of our human experience where we feel our trust is violated. Brene Brown, of course, has some wonderful talks on shame and the impact of trauma. You know, and so I think that many more people than they realize have trauma. And it's hard to admit it because we always think, well, that isn't really bad enough. I mean, lots of people have had worse things happen to them, but that's so not true, because pain for our spirits and our bodies is relative. And so for one person, a move to a new location can be really traumatic if they're a child. For other people, they love that. You know, it's really how it fits in the context of our lives. And so that does get internalized. And the first place trauma of any kind is stored is at the body level, which is fascinating. And I'll talk about that more in a little while, but it really is amazing how we were created.
Right. I want to keep on trauma because I feel like, again, a huge stumbling block that I've encountered with a lot of my clients is they can't let go of the past. And sometimes we don't even know what the past is. Like I sometimes even struggle with knowing something has harmed me or something has bothered me or created me to be this person or caused this anxiety, but I can't quite pinpoint that. And I know it has to do with our subconscious and unconscious mind, which are two different things. But I want you to talk about, or can you help us to figure out how can we start to pull from our trauma and deal with it? Or is it even possible?
Absolutely, it's possible. And I think one of the best pieces that has come out of the research on neuroplasticity is understanding just how possible it is, because we used to think, well, the brain can't change. So once a person's been traumatized, whether through war or abuse or divorce or whatever it is, that was it. Your fate was sealed. And now we know that change is so possible. But what's interesting is often when trauma occurs, especially the big trauma, you know, childhood abuse, sexual abuse, that level of trauma, it really cuts off the blood supply to the language center of the brain. And so you're stuck in your experience. You know you want to say something and you don't have any words. All you have is this sensation that you want to say something. And in fact, it's often like a silent movie. You remember the incident a lot of times, but you can't connect the emotions. It sort of becomes matter of fact, like, well, of course that happened. And to anybody else, they would be horrified to think about it. But what I found, Alexa, is really that it is a soul positioning, that our soul gets to a point where we're ready to deal with it and it starts bubbling up. And whether that's triggered by an adult event or just in our own sort of evolution of feeling safe to take on the pain, those things start to bubble up. And one of the earliest places we can look for clues is our body. And if there's chronic pain, chronic disease, that's a really clear indicator oftentimes that there is trauma stored. In fact, even with obesity, that they've found that an inordinate percentage of people who struggle with obesity also have trauma in their lives. And there's an ACEs study that maybe we can link to for folks that really does show this amazingly strong link, that if we would allow those symptoms to speak to us, so to speak, it really would tell more of their emotional journey, and then we can help them heal more. But the body almost uses disease and unhealthiness as an expression of psychological and emotional pain. So Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and it is absolutely fascinating because when we allow those parts of our body to speak, and it's just going into the pain, asking what it's about, we can uncover so much about what the wounds are in that person's soul. He also has found that body movement like yoga or Tai Chi is incredibly healing. The words often never come, but something about the movement of the body and allowing that pain to be expressed physically heals those sections of the brain that are traumatized and can heal some of the memories. So in my work, I use a multifaceted approach like that really addresses the memories that can't be verbalized, but that are crying out. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No. So do you have to verbalize? So you can heal without ever verbalizing past trauma. Is that a true statement, or is that
I wouldn't go that far. I think there are pieces of the trauma that may never be verbalized. But definitely the body sort of opens the door. So when someone comes in and they've got chronic disease and maybe they're going through some relationship stress, we just start to dig in a little bit, and find out how long they've been dealing with the symptoms. And then more and more we can get some sort of memory triggered. But as part of that, they won't necessarily have all the pieces.
Right.
And those pieces that we can't bring out do get dealt with often in sort of a physical activity of some kind. And drama, they've found drama, doing theater, that kind of thing is really, really healing.
Yeah. Okay, this is so fascinating. And I want to start talking about a little bit about how this affects our biology, because I feel like there's a really big disconnect, even in the medical society of, we treat all these symptoms, but it doesn't necessarily mean, it could just mean that it's coming from, like you said, a past trauma. Like, so for instance, this all came to light, and I don't think I've ever shared this on a podcast, but for me, I started really putting together the power of my mind when I was having chronic hip pain. A year or so ago, and I just attributed it to like diet, or I was dealing with all this health stuff, and it wasn't until I was getting a massage, and my massage therapist is really into the mindset, and I had a C-section with my second child, and this is kind of a little tangent here, but it was a traumatic birth for her, and she really struggled afterwards, and I always felt like I failed her a little bit, like I failed the fact that I didn't make the best decisions, or I don't want to say I didn't make the best decisions. Like, I had a few options that I could have chosen to maybe try and prevent the C-section, and they were very risky, so I opted out of the high-risk procedure to try and flip her and do all these things. And anyways, it was a very traumatic birth, and she really struggled her first year of life. And I think I blamed myself for her illness. And it wasn't until that massage therapist said, I don't think you have hip pain. I think you have emotional trauma that's settling in your hip. And it was just like mind blown, right? Like, and as I started to deal with that and let it go and to forgive myself, or, you know, and she kind of helped talk me through that a little bit. I really don't struggle with that, but I do notice that even if I get in an argument with my husband or I get into stressful situations at home, I will get hip pain. So have I thought myself into this, or is this a true biological process that's happening?
I believe it's a true biological process happening. I mean, they really have looked at blood flow and all kinds of biological studies and markers while they've been sometimes inducing certain memories in people. And so they've actually been able to observe those things in the brain. In fact, Dr. Amen's work looks at the brain through a SPECT scan, both at a resting and at an anxious state. And so that in its very definition says that there's going to be some kind of a physiological response to the emotions that are present. And oftentimes for women, the hip area is an area that shows symptoms and discomfort or digestive issues. And that partly has to do with the polyvagal nerve, that a blood supply gets cut off to the digestive system, oftentimes in trauma. So you'll find digestive issues as something very prevalent in people who've had trauma or migraine headaches, or pain that's sort of mysterious, but definitely feels connected to an event like the birth of your daughter, and the guilt that you felt, even though, you know, you did the best you could. It's the body's way of saying, I don't have words for this, but the pain is going to help you know that. And it's not that it's even imagined pain. They really do see a change in blood flow. So there's physical evidence. It's not just psychosomatic. But absolutely. And so I use some of what's called somatic reprocessing. And so we actually, you know, give voice. It sounds a little woo-woo, but that it isn't that way. We give voice to the pain and ask it what it needs. And it is amazingly effective at helping people bring up feelings and experiences that they can't articulate. If I just said point blank, well, how do you feel about the birth of your daughter? It would really lead us to that. It's an amazing, amazing guide, you know, sort of like wandering through the forest, and this guide is really telling you where to go to find what you're looking for.
It's fascinating. We kind of talked before we got on that as Christians, we feel like we're walking a tightrope of woo-woo versus true healing practices. And I want to talk about spirituality towards the end of this podcast, because I think it's important to talk about, and I would love your opinion, because I feel like I'm right there with you. Of some of these things sound out there, but really they can be extremely healing to the body. And like you mentioned, that in some of the things that I did to help with my hip pain, like some tapping, and I don't know, do you do anything with tapping?
I don't, but I've seen it be very effective, and I know a lot of therapists do.
Yeah. Again, it has to do with the action and the thought process. Is that correct? Like, I'm not sure. Like, all of these have like a structure, right? Like, are you trying to blend in the biological with the mind? Is that technically what you're trying to do with healing?
Yes. I mean, and the spirit and those kinds of things. With tapping, it taps the meridians, and it's related to sort of those acupuncture points that are linked to some nerve areas of the body. And I'll admit that I am not an emotional freedom technique expert. It's called EFT, the tapping, but it's proven to be very effective, you know. And I think as Christians, even in Scripture, there are times when it's alluded to that a lot of what the person is suffering from has to do with their mindset. You know, the man who sat outside the gates and basically, you know, Jesus said, well, pick up your mat. You know, I just go. And also the woman who touched the hem of his garment.
Right.
You know, a lot of that had to do with where she was in her mind and her spirit, rather than just simply some unknown physiological disorder that had kept her in a disease state for 12 plus years.
Right. Because like I talk about a lot when it comes to food is that we metabolize food differently based on our beliefs about the food that we're going to eat. And again, the belief goes back to being in the right mind space to have the biological components to follow through with that. And so it's kind of the same thing, right, with healing. Like you kind of have to be in the right mind space, essentially, to open yourself up to some of these things.
Absolutely. I think that that's why we get so frustrated, because people will say, oh, this is a really effective treatment modality, or this is the one cure we have, or if you follow these 12 steps, you know, you'll get to whatever result that you're looking for. But unless we examine those deeper things that are going on in our mind and our spirit and our woundedness, either we're going to get no result, or we're going to get sort of a partial result from what we hoped for. And then we get frustrated. Well, I'm following the rules. I don't understand. But then we've got to look deeper and say, what are those messages that are coming up for you? You know, what is it that you're really, really believing that sets your mind on that course? What is the lie that you're believing? And then we're able to really combat that, because we know, I call it sometimes like a thief. You know, we've shown the light on the thief inside your home, and we're going to approach it as an intruder because it has no business being there. And so we really learn to counteract those messages with truths. But it's a hard process for people to slow down long enough and look deeply enough to understand what those lies are. But man, when we hit it, it can be totally transformative. And often that's a process I call of remothering, because so many times it involves a wound when you're a child, both for men and for women. And it really is learning to go in and take care of those needs that are sitting out there unmet for the person. And I don't mean to go off on a tangent there, but it really is absolutely essential to get your mind in that space.
Yeah, no, fascinating. So is that where the role of spirituality comes from, or comes into play too?
Absolutely. And really saying, you know, in a lot of cases, we think, oh, well, I've got to really believe this. I've got to feel worthy of it. I've got to have all the emotions connected before I can actually start to incorporate it as part of my mindset. And that isn't true. Often it comes later, you know, that you may not feel like you're totally worthy of love, but you have to just, you know, think that and confess it over your life and say, I really don't have a choice. This is the truth that, you know, God has said about my life, and you have to yield to that higher truth and understand that our human truth is always going to be substandard to that. So we don't have to wait for the emotions. You just say it's not something that I get to choose. I am worthy simply because I was born. And the more we say it, the more we think it, the more we surround ourselves with people who can actually reinforce that, the more it actually does become a state for our soul and our body. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So on the lines of relationships, because you brought up community a few times, I once heard on a podcast that you're only as healthy as your marriage is healthy, or you're only as healthy as your most unhealthy relationship. Like, I've heard it both ways. Like, what is your take on that? Like, how powerful are relationships in our life?
they are tremendously powerful. And it's not just because of the relational aspect in terms of that other person, but it really does, expose our deepest weakness. And again, using that analogy of a thief, when we transfer that to a security guard, if a security guard is going around a building, they're going to try every single door. And they really want the door to be locked, but they are there to identify the weak points. And so they also want to know what's a vulnerability. So when I work with couples or with individuals, we kind of scan their lives. And if there's one area that's lagging, then we say, we've got to take care of that, because that's a vulnerability. And so definitely the building is only as secure as, the doors are. And if the one door is ajar or it's weakened, it's going to put the whole building at risk. And the same is true with our own lives, and certainly I've found both in my own journey and in my work with people that when we start to address those things and really get honest and not shame ourselves and not criticize ourselves, but say, no, this is here to teach me what I need to be working on and what I need to be paying attention to. It's not there to shame me or cause me more guilt. It's a teacher. And, then it can turn into a gift in your life. And you can really start to examine, why is it even in my life, and how can we change it?
Yeah, I like that. Let's talk a little bit about the change, because, obviously we're talking about the mindset, and people are probably wondering, what are those big areas of, which I'm just going to come out and say that probably everyone has work to do when it comes to mindset health. But what are the top 3 places that you would give someone to start with, either to recognize or to start dealing with?
Tell me a little bit more about what you mean.
So if someone is, they really want to start working on these past traumas, and they really want to start, getting their mindset aligned with where they really want to go, with their desires, with their purpose, with their spirituality and all of that. What are the first few places that someone came to you? Where would you start them?
I would start them with their why, because if we don't have that bigger why, nothing else is going to feel as motivating to us. And we've got to have that bigger purpose to latch onto and that vision for our life. And there's a tool that Dr. Amen uses called the one-page miracle. And it really gives you an opportunity to flesh out and say, what is my vision for my life? And without that foundation, a person feels really lost because we don't think of ourselves as enough of a motivation, and then I think really deciding what it is that is the most supportive of this process and making sure that we have those things in place in our lives, whether it's, an inner circle of friends and family or our spirituality or whatever it is. I think it's, addressing that community piece of things, and then also saying, let's look at things physiologically, get some basic testing to make sure we're not dealing with a hormone imbalance or, low thyroid or hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia, diabetes. All of those things can cause certain mindset shifts, and those are quick wins. And we need those. We need to have some quick wins, understand and get motivated. This isn't scaling Everest the whole time. I'm going to give you some little foothills that we can get over, and then you have a better way of climbing the mountain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Like you said, those small wins to help you kind of start feeling it and wanting to keep going with it, because it is freeing in a lot of ways to get rid of this. So if someone has trauma, and how do you begin with trauma? If trauma is their hurdle. Is it the same thing? Start with the why? They have to know where they're going in order to start dealing with the trauma? Or do you have to deal with your trauma to figure out where you want to go?
Well, you can do it both times. because the why will likely change, but at least we've identified what the hook is for why the trauma needs to be dealt with. And that's important for people. You know, what's coming up in your life right now that makes this the right time for you to deal with this. And so we kind of start there. I really look at a thorough history of their childhood and a thorough look at their health, because that's going to help indicate, you know, a little bit oftentimes of the depth of the trauma and how pervasive it is. Looking at their relationship history and understanding what those patterns are is really, really important, because those things show up in a chronic way for people, especially with childhood trauma. I do work with people with complex trauma, which means they have usually had a childhood trauma and then multiple traumas throughout their life. It becomes a way of life for them. And so we really want to look at their history and give them a chance to tell their story. They've made this huge leap into deciding to get well and deciding that life can be different, and they don't want to live in this pain anymore. And so a lot of times just having sessions where people can share, because a lot of times their story hasn't been heard before. But, you know, Alexa, I've also had sessions with women who've been in such trauma that for the first several sessions, they are basically sitting there for most of the session in tears. And that's okay, too, because you're witnessing their pain. I say they cry old tears, because the tears have often been completely absent as they've been trying to deal with what's happened to them. And so these tears have been waiting to come out for a long, long time. So it really is an individual sort of approach, because each case is different. But we really want to get a good picture of what life looks like for them right now, and then to explain to them, you know, that change is possible and probable. You know, and that I say I walk through the abyss with you, and I'm not going to be scared, but it is going to be painful. But on the other side, it's so worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such great information. Like you said, I think even to give people hope to know that you can change this, that your mind isn't static, and that biologically even, like, this is, like you said, the blood flow can change, and that we don't have to live in the mindset that we are, you know, the negative mindset that some of us live in for forever, right? Like, I think that there's a lot of hope in that. So just a few more questions, although I could talk to you forever about this stuff. But what do you see as one of the greatest negative influencers impacting our mind?
Our own self-talk.
Yeah.
You know, because we take it on blindly, and it is so self. One of the things I ask people to do early on in the process is to say, I really want you to listen and identify the messages that you're giving yourself. And so they listen for a week, and they come back and they say, I didn't hear anything. You know, I don't think that I have a lot of self-talk. And so I said, try it for another week. And slow it down a little bit more. And when they do, it's just amazing. And that was my own experience. We have no idea the barrage of you can never, or you should, or that's never for you, or, you know, you're so this, that, and the other thing, or you're so unworthy, you know, that we just heap on top of ourselves. And yet we never, ever say those things to another person.
Right.
So once we identify those lies, that really gives us a lot of ammunition to try to tackle the healing piece of things.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, because we are our own worst enemy a lot of times. And usually our own voices are the loudest voice in our lives. I like that approach.
Absolutely.
So is the, like, I'm going to ask you the opposite question, like along the same lines, what is our greatest positive influence on our minds? Is it positive self-talk, or is there something else?
I believe it's positive self-talk rooted in whatever your foundation in life is. You know, it really, that's why when we say, you know, where your mind goes, your life, the man follows, because you know, it's sort of, there's a verse that says, you know, the power of life and death is in the tongue, and it's essentially our tongue that is the thing that's torturing our mind or giving it life. And so we really want to address that. And there isn't a whole lot that can be harmed by self-talk. I don't think there's anything that is outside of the grasp. I mean, positive self-talk. So there's never harm in it. You can only gain from it. And it is so powerful when you hear testimonies of people who simply changed their mind and all that they were able to transform in their lives simply by daily, moment by moment, hour by hour, starting their day with gratitude, whatever that is, but just saturating the mind with truth, not Pollyanna-ish, not, you know, having rose-colored glasses on, being honest about what life is, but more importantly, being honest about how you can handle what life throws at us. It's not that everything is going to be great, you know, which is a lot of what law of attraction preaches, that if you're in a good, healthy place emotionally, you know, life is going to show up and always be great. Instead, I really like to say, let's be equipped for whatever life throws at us.
Yeah.
Because life is going to throw some really hard things in our way. And you know what? They're the greatest gifts. And that's truly been my experience.
Yeah. So what are a few more ways? You mentioned gratitude, but just this last question, like a few more ways we can equip ourselves that we can do this, like that we can change our mindset, which really equates to changing your life.
Absolutely. You know, I think having proper nutrition, I know that I've mentioned that, but I can't mention it enough. It really is so healing emotionally and psychologically and spiritually. And we have to be vigilant in all of these areas. We have to be vigilant about the spiritual component of our lives and making sure that whatever that is for us is a daily practice. You know, we have to be vigilant about what gets put in our bodies and be honest about it, because that really does affect our success. And we have to be vigilant about who it is in our lives, because we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
And that is just true because of how they rub off on us and what thoughts that we're accepting from them. I mean, you hear that a lot, but like, is that why? Or like, is there a reason behind that?
You know, we imitate the behavior that we see around us, and we see that certainly in primate behavior and other things, but we really do tend to set our standards by what we're seeing the most in our lives, you know, and we incorporate some of the negative messages, some of the ideals, because we want to fit in. That's just our natural inclination. And we also define our possibilities often by what we're seeing happen in other people's lives. And so if you're spending your time with people who are, you know, really not striving, who really aren't being their best, they're just kind of living life in a mediocre way, that's what our brain is going to say is possible. You know, that's our max threshold. And instead, we want to open it up to possibilities that are going to challenge us, that are going to get us to be in a growth mindset. And we can't do that if we're constantly taking in a diet of people who are living in an opposite way.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Oh, I could keep talking to you forever, but we can't.
I'm here.
I hope to have you on again, because this is fantastic. Like, this is exactly what I am so passionate about. And I just hope that everyone is soaking this up and really starting to feel the grasp of how powerful our mind is, and really how I want to say easily, but that could come across really difficult or really poorly, because trauma can be really, really difficult to deal with. But dealing with our mindset isn't the same as having to restrict or starve or work out for 90 minutes a day. It might feel that painful, but really, like, practicing gratitude is a very simple practice. I think sometimes I always think these are so simple that we don't take them seriously. But like I said, I shouldn't have said easy because past traumas can be so immensely difficult to deal with. But like you said, it's kind of the snowball effect. Like, it's not like climbing Mount Everest forever. So thank you so much for being on to share that. I do have a few quick fire questions, and then I want you to tell people where they can learn more about you. So a few quick fire questions. What is the first thing you do every morning for your health?
I focus on my spirituality. So I really have time that's in solitude. I, put good food in my body. Put good food into my spirit. I exercise. And that's sort of my sacred time. Those are non-negotiables. And I am pretty vigilant about that time of my day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm getting that way too. There's something sacred about it. What's your favorite
great.
health book?
Oh my gosh. Now that is a hard one.
Or a mindset book.
I think what was really transformative for me, I think, and it's a little bit indirect, but it really was Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score, for somebody who's had a journey with trauma, and then Joyce Meyer wrote a book called The Battlefield for the Mind, and that is tremendously insightful as well. I have a hard time picking because obviously it's a real passion of mine too, but I think also, looking at the role of nutrition. And so I could probably pick 10 pretty easily and still have more. But
I haven't read The Body Keeps the Score yet, but I did just get that on Amazon. But The Battlefield of the Mind by Joyce Meyer is an excellent book. It's one I often go back to just to help fight the lies. I feel like it's a really great book to have a battle plan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it really gets us to wake up and realize that we can do this. Simply that message, I think that's what you are meaning when you said it's quote unquote easy. It's so much about the message of capability and possibility that leads to the most healing.
Right. Okay, what's one food you couldn't live without?
Sashimi. I am a diehard sashimi lover, and I can't imagine life without it. But yes.
That's one I haven't heard on here yet. So that's awesome. What's one thing you do for your mindset every day?
Exercise, definitely. And I think that really does set me up to feel energized and optimistic and positive, and of course that's sort of at the end of my sacred time in the morning, because that time when I'm focused on, for me, that's my relationship with the Lord, that I have to say, I should have said that really is the most transformative thing. And I realize more and more, and especially lately in my journey, just how much that time and learning more and more about those truths literally changes my brain and my mind. So scratch the exercise, go to the spirituality, and because I couldn't trade it, and it wouldn't even fuel me for exercise, because I believe the two are really connected.
Yeah, I agree. And last question, what's the best piece of advice you could leave us with?
Allow yourself to be vulnerable to the possibility of change.
Yeah. So good. So good. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here.
Oh, I have loved this. This has been such a privilege. Thank you so much, Alexa. I could talk to you forever, because what you do is so critical in this journey. It is just really, really sacred work that you do.
Likewise. So, Amy, tell us where we can find more about you and what you do.
Absolutely. I am online at www.amyvanslambrook.com, and it sounds like a mouthful, but it's really simple to spell. And then I'm on Facebook. I'm just starting to get into Instagram, but more of me is on Facebook. And then You can get connected to me through email or text or voicemail, any of those things. And I absolutely love to hear from people because this is a passion of mine. And I lead masterminds, do individual and couples therapy. And so I just would love to hear from anybody.
Yes. Well, you'll be hearing from me again.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I'll make sure and link all that up in the show notes. But Amy, it really has been a pleasure. And I hope this isn't the last time that we can record a show together to put out into the world, because this is going to change lives.
Oh, well, that would be a real privilege. I'll look forward to that, Alexa. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be on here and to share this with your listeners.
Yes, thank you. Oh my goodness, so much information and so valuable. I can tell you that Amy is such an insightful person, and she has so many resources at her fingertips. If you're looking for something personal, make sure you head on over to her website at amyvanslambrook.com to see the other resources that she has there and even get involved in personal consulting. I know this has been a choice that I have never regretted, is to have my own counselor. And I know it sounds taboo and something that you're not supposed to need, but I really believe that all of us could benefit from talking through our past traumas and hurts and how we can better our emotions to better our health. Not only that, but to better our relationships and just how we live in this world. So make sure you head on over to Amy Van Slambrook to check that out. Also, all the links she talked about in the show can be found in the show notes at simplerootswellness.com/114. Yes, that's 114, which I still can't believe when we're over the 100 episode mark. Anyways, make sure you head to the show notes and don't forget to sign up for my email list while you're there. Every week, you're going to be getting a newsletter from me, giving you updates, as well as my meal plan, how things are going, special challenges, and so much more. When you're at the show notes, make sure that you sign up to receive my free weekly email. And as always, if you love the show, I would love if you would leave a rating and review. I ask you all the time, and it's because it's really that important and means the life to me. I would give each of you a hug, but since most of us don't actually see each other in person, that will have to pass. So I'm just going to send my virtual hug to everyone who leaves a rating and review. To leave any honest feedback you have, search for me and iTunes at Simple Roots Radio. Leave your feedback, or you can just go to simplerootswellness.com/review to leave any and all feedback that you have. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Alexa Sherm. Check out Amy's website at Amy Van Slambrook and get on that email list. In the meantime, I'll be back next week with another episode. In the meantime, here's to having the best week.